This is episode 121, Seeing Your Life as a Movie. Many people love watching movies where the main character has to overcome one challenge after another, but we often don't like to be the one facing the challenges. What if you could take a step back and see yourself as the story writer and come up with the ending you'd like to see? Hi, I'm Carla Rieger, and this is the Mind Story Speaker Podcast. As I've been talking about on several episodes, challenges are a part of life, and they will continue to come throughout the rest of your life. In fact, now there seems to be more challenges than ever. Not only do people have their personal everyday issues, there are world issues disrupting people's lives. Now, in the big picture, challenges are a good thing, even if it doesn't feel that way at the moment. Because if life didn't give you challenges, you wouldn't evolve, you wouldn't grow, you wouldn't learn. And that not only applies to human beings, it applies to every life form on Earth. Life is very challenging for every plant, tree, animal, insect on the planet. Life presents challenges over and over again for every single species in the world, because anything that doesn't get challenged becomes very fragile, imbalanced, and tends to die out earlier than those who have experienced and learned how to overcome challenges. So consciousness grows through being faced with challenges. And many of us see that intellectually, but when faced with a challenge in our life, like right now, it's easy to forget that. It's more common to feel annoyed, ripped off by life, frustrated, maybe even a victim of your circumstances. That's a normal first response. But if you stay in that response for a long time, you just won't evolve. What if this challenge is a gift from life, but you're not accepting that gift? If so, life just keeps on giving out of pure generosity until you get the gift. Simple example, I'm about to publish my new visionary fantasy fiction novel, Heliotropous. Look for the link in the show notes for more info on the book if you're interested. Now, the person who did the formatting did an amazing job, but I made the mistake of only going through the first few chapters to check that everything copied over well from the original manuscript, and it was laid out well. It was. So I was just about to go to print with the book when I noticed that starting about a third of the way through the book, none of the italics got copied over. And since italics play a huge role in this book, I realized this needed to be fixed before going to print. The person who formatted the book was backlogged with other jobs and sick, so waiting for him to do it would mean waiting for weeks. So I felt annoyed and frustrated and ripped off by the service provider, a victim of this circumstance, until I decided to take my own advice and see it as a gift. Okay, how is this a gift? How can I deal with this in a way that it is a generosity from life? And I immediately got the message when I asked in that way. Apparently, it was important for me to personally go through these chapters again, to not only change the italics, but to maybe change other things. Now, if you've ever written a book and gone through it many, many, many times, you know that by the time you're just about close to finishing it, you have a lot of fatigue around editing it. And the book had already been edited by 2 professional editors, so why go through it yet again? So do I hire someone else who can fix the formatting and do it right, which would have cost a lot of money, or do I just do it myself? Well, I decided to do it myself because I just really wanted to make sure it was done right, and I'd have to go through it myself anyway in case the same thing happened again. And that ended up being a huge gift because, of course, I found inconsistencies that I hadn't fixed yet in various plot lines of the story, even though I thought I caught them all, even though my editor thought he caught them all, and I found little typos and extra spaces, even though I'd had this professional proofreader go through it. It just happens. On top of that, I actually enjoyed going through it again, and it didn't take me nearly as long as I thought. So if I hadn't asked the question, what's the gift here? I might have done the whole project in a bad mood or hired someone else to do it, and then all the things wouldn't have gotten fixed that I had found. Now, I'm sure you have examples of challenges, obstacles, setbacks that started out feeling frustrating, annoying, or even downright offending in terms of what you had to face, and you managed to turn it around, find something good, found the gift, learned something, grew in some way, became stronger, more resilient, more compassionate, less naive, and wiser because of it. So if you've done that in the past, you can do it again with whatever you are facing right now. Especially if it's a challenge you faced before and it keeps coming back, there's still something there for you to learn. And just opening your mind to that possibility alone helps magnetize the learning to you, even if you don't know what it is right now. And as I've talked about on other episodes, you wouldn't want to go see a movie where the characters are not challenged, or read a novel where the hero just has it easy all the way through. And I've been a writer for many years and have taught storytelling and used to do improvisational theater. And in all those situations, the golden rule is that you must continually look for how to get your characters in trouble, to feed them one challenge after another, and then create how they get out of that trouble. That's what people want to see. That's what they want to read. And if you've ever watched a movie or read a story that didn't do that, chances are you lost interest in it early on. Like I remember in university, I was taking this course on filmmaking, and we had to watch this avant-garde film that started out focused on a window, kind of a decorative window on the outside of a house, wide shot. And the rest of the movie was watching the camera zoom closer and closer and closer to the window. And then the movie ended. And it was a long movie. Then we had to write an essay about it. Now, I'm not saying there isn't some value to be found in putting all your focus on something mundane as a window for a long period of time and looking for the deep symbolism. It's an interesting experiment in focus and how the mind creates all this crazy meaning out of nothing, which is a form of mindfulness training. But let's just say that movie never became a blockbuster hit. When I started writing plays, short stories, and novels back in my 20s, I saw the crossover between stories we love and a life well lived. That golden rule helped me see myself as a character in a movie. And how would I, as a writer, find a creative solution? Because often I ended up creating characters who were in the same challenging position I was, because that's what you get drawn to as a writer. In fact, many of the earlier episodes in this Mind Story Speaker podcast go into how to create stories if you're interested in using that as a communication tool. Then in our book, Mind Story Inner Coach, there is a whole chapter, chapter 10, on how to write out a story of your life like it was a mythic journey screenplay or novel, which is very powerful, not only in terms of using that story if you do any kind of writing or speaking or coaching or consulting, but it also helps you relook at all those challenges as badges of honor instead of proof that you're a loser. So all these epic fails, setbacks, challenges, hardships, obstacles, missed opportunities, stupid things that you did, all made you who you are today in the best possible way. Many of our best qualities are because of those things that you had to face or those sabotages you created. Now, the really good movies, the ones people most want to see, is where the main character gets challenged and the challenge brings out a change in the character. Those are the movies that usually get great reviews. Not so good are movies where the challenge gets resolved in an external way, like the bad guy is finally eliminated. The ones people watch over and over again are where the character becomes more conscious, more evolved because of the challenges. So think about any movie that you've seen more than once. If you're into movies, I realize some people are not. or they prefer novels or documentaries or nonfiction. But if there's a song or a movie or novel that you wanted to experience more than once, chances are there's some theme within it at a substructure level that's almost not perceivable to the conscious mind, but is magnetizing to the subconscious. Now, in those cases, you already know what's going to happen in the story, but you want to experience it again. You want to watch someone awaken and see how they participate in the challenges they faced. And maybe you read a story 10 years ago and you got something amazing out of it, and then 10 years later you get something completely different out of it, or the same with movies. Even if it's a funny movie, like one of my favorite movies of all time that I've seen at many different times in my life is Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray. Maybe you've seen it. When the movie first came out, it actually didn't do well in the theaters, but it became this big cult hit. You know, when you could get it on Netflix or whatever. Meaning many people list that movie as something they've watched over and over again. And I think that's because it shows the main character becoming more and more conscious. He suffers and suffers again and suffers again because he's stuck in the same day over and over again, and he can't get out. This is, of course, the state of the false self, the ego self. It's like the game the soul signed up for, where you forget your true self, you get meshed into this false self, and then the game is to find your way out from the darkness into the light. And that's why we love seeing movies about people doing that. And you can learn a lot about your own struggles by seeing a character go through similar struggles. Even if the details of the struggle are different, the way they go through solving it is usually something you can apply to your own life. And in the movie Groundhog's Day, we see someone very much lost in the trappings of the false self, the ego self, who ends up being stuck in a job he hates, in this town he hates, seeing people every day that he hates, trying to pick up a woman who produces the show, played by Andie MacDowell, who refuses him every time. And finally, he can't stand the suffering anymore, so chooses to off himself. He tries to off himself many, many times, and he always wakes up at 6 a.m. the next morning to a Sonny and Cher hit on the clock radio. But finally, he chooses not to hate things around him anymore. He just accepts them, and then suddenly experiences the very same things in a totally different way. And when I listened to an interview with the creators of the film, Danny Rubin and Harold Ramis, they said in their minds, the character lived the same day, Groundhog's Day, February 2nd, at least 10,000 times. And that's not stated overtly in the film, but it's implied. So after about 10,000 times of hating things around him, he decided to accept things just as they are. He actually learns to love the guy he knew from high school who tries to sell him life insurance every time they bump into each other. He befriends and starts to help the cameraman on his film crew rather than bully him. He helps people in the town instead of ridicule them. And lo and behold, the Andie MacDowell character starts to be attracted to him. Everybody starts to love him because he loves and accepts them, and that helps him love and accept himself. And then he says to her, his object of affection, actually, I'm starting to like this town. Let's stay. And that's exactly when life allows him to finally wake up to a new day. It's the first day in 10,000 days where it's actually February 3rd instead of February 2nd. He's free to leave when he accepts life just as it is, learning what he needs to learn, and realizing that the challenges were ultimately self-created and therefore could be changed by himself as well. And I think people love that movie so much because it so accurately reflects life. There's an old quote, the more you complain, the more God lets you live. Maybe that's why so many really old people are crotchety complainers. And conversely, sometimes you see people make a huge shift in consciousness about what life is really about, come to a clarity about life, come to an inner acceptance of themselves, and then they die. It's like God said, okay, you got it, you can go now. And they move on to some other great adventure, depending on your beliefs about the afterlife. Yet if you think about it, you wouldn't want that to be the movie of your life, like a Groundhog's Day kind of thing. Most people wish that challenges didn't happen to them and that the movie of their life would actually be kind of boring. They love to watch movies about other people getting into trouble, but what happens to them, they complain and think, this shouldn't be happening to me. So, of course, I'm talking about the challenges that are an inevitable part of the daily existence. And even as you awaken, you get challenged by the gravitational pull of the unconsciousness within yourself, and also the unconsciousness within other people around you that you live with, that you work with, relatives, friends, together all interacting in a cauldron of alchemical reactions. And that's when the mind will go into an if-only fantasy scenario. It's where you devise a list of things that you would need to get rid of your challenges. If only I had enough money, then I wouldn't have to work. I could get a massage every day so I wouldn't have this backache. I would have someone cook me really healthy food, and then I'd lose weight and feel good. And they do all the grocery shopping and clean up afterwards so I wouldn't have to do all those mundane tasks. Then all I would do is meditate and exercise and live in nature, breathing clean, pure air, not being disturbed by noises or other people's issues. And anyone say that you have to deal with, you would pay them. And you'd have to have enough money to pay all the people around you so that they would feel they had to be nice to you all the time. In that way, you're not being challenged by obnoxious humans anymore. But you might reach a point after spending a few months or years in this wonderful, easy life, you might find yourself going into withdrawal. Where are all my juicy conflicts, challenges, and issues? Because many people are hoping that the absence of challenges will facilitate their growth, but it's actually the opposite. Because you would find your level of presence actually decreases. You go in a kind of autopilot where you take things for granted, where there's no contrast between good and bad, easy and challenging. It all becomes a blur of okayness. Of course, times like that in your life are good and necessary, but if you live your whole life like that, then you will not grow very much. Maybe you don't need to grow very much. Maybe some people just want a whole life where things are really easy. Nothing wrong with that. But if you came here to learn, if you sense that in the core of who you are, that you're here to be on an adventure, to be present, to explore and discover, you'll want a few good, juicy challenges. So whatever arises in your life, it's kind of a spiritual practice. It's a practice designed just for you, a gift from life. Life, or maybe you might even call it a higher self. The screenwriter of your life has cast you as the hero. And most heroes, if you've noticed watching any kind of epic film, almost always is reluctant to go on the adventure at first. Frodo would actually like to stay in his hobbit house and not follow Gandalf to the Mountain of Doom. Thank you very much. Bill Murray's character definitely doesn't want to stay stuck in the same town on the same day 10,000 days in a row. But he'd still be the same old curmudgeon if life hadn't given him that gift. So whatever challenge you're dealing with right now, it helps to become compassionate with your reluctance to go on the hero's journey, whether it's a big problem or a small one. But also to know that within that challenge are the seeds of a great opportunity, a great gift. And this is one of those life skills that if you learn it, continually seeing challenges as a gift, it comes in so amazingly handy on so many occasions and is one of the best things you can ever teach to others, especially to young people. You feed them for a lifetime when you do. So, as I mentioned, my publishing company Golden Age Timeline is just about to publish Heliotropus, which is a visionary fantasy fiction novel. So if you read books like that and love a good page turner, this is for you. Now, you might want to know more about the book in the meantime, so just go to goldenagetimeline.com/book to find out more. That's goldenagetimeline.com/book. And you'll also see the link in the show notes. And on that page, you'll see a description of the book, and you can check out the first few chapters in both written and audio form, and that can help you decide whether you'd like to read it or not. So Heliotropous centers on a time-traveling man and his adult daughter. She lives this normal life until she discovers they are descendants of an advanced race of subterranean humans trying to help surface humans evolve. So far, it's gotten great reviews from advanced readers, so do check it out if you're interested. Also, check out Mind Story Inner Coach. You can go to Chapter 10 and fill in the blanks in terms of rewriting your life as a mythic hero's journey. And you can also use our 5-part Avara model within the book to discover a different way of seeing challenges in your life to finding the gift more quickly. It's unbelievably effective in turning something annoying, hard, frustrating, or debilitating into something you're grateful for. So to get that book, just go to mindstoryacademy.com or see the links to those in the show notes. Right now, both are available for free, but not for long. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.